I'd like to call to order the September 13th meeting of the Shelby Township Planning Commission. I'll ask the secretary to call the roll, please.
Mr. Snyder?
Here.
Ms. Gonzalez? Here. Mr. Meredith?
Here.
Mr. Grott?
Here.
Mr. Turner?
Here.
Mr. Pone?
Here.
Mr. Larray?
Here.
Chairman Moffett, we have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Next is the approval of the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Been moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item is approval from the August 23rd meeting.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. First item is correspondence. The City of Troy has sent us a notice of their intent to amend their master plan. To the planner, is there any comments you wish to make on that?
Just briefly, Chairman, the City of Troy is in the process of reviewing their master plan. When the draft is available, they will forward it to our township. The only thing is that there's a significant amount of distance between the City of Troy and Shelby Township, which is located at the southwest corner of 59 in DeQuinder there. So most of the area in Troy on that side is pretty built up. It's only Sterling Heights that has a large area of open ground that could affect Shelby Township, but again, that's City of Sterling Heights. So this is just a notice that they're required to notify the abutting districts, and it's just a matter of receive and file.
Great. Are there any questions of the planner? Hearing none, is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Support. Moved by Turner, support by Apone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. So this evening, we have 6 items of substance on our agenda. The first being site plan number 21-07, Beth Williams for GG Dental. Is the petitioner or representative here? Okay, anyone addressing the body needs to sign in with their name and address. You can do that after you begin speaking. But name and address.
Beth Williams,
And I-
32384 Edward Avenue.
I believe when last we spoke, there were questions about the second-story material, so.
Correct, there were questions on all the exterior materials, so I actually, if you don't mind, I
Great.
guess I have show and tell. Here's a sample of a plan that we're planning on putting at the top portion of the building. I also brought the brick and the stone that we're planning on putting. Figured everybody had questions, so here you go. You're welcome to look at them. All of these, I do have the specs of them. I did put the specs into the architecturals, so you will have those. I also made a colored copy of a picture that gave us the inspiration for the building of what we were trying to do. Obviously, ours is a little bit different because we have a larger second floor. That's truly only a single story, but you requested the second story, so we did add that on. So it is going to be a little bit taller, but that's generally similar to what it's going to look like.
Okay. To the planner, do you believe these materials conform to the ordinance for that district?
They do, Chairman.
Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Grott,
I'm ready to make a motion if.
please do.
Fine.
Yep.
Motion to approve site plan number 21-07, Beth Williams Innovative Construction for GG's Dental for parcel number 23-07-10-354-015, located north of 24 Mile Road, east side of Van Dyke, based on the applicant submitting revised site plans addressing the department and engineering comments and obtaining the required variances.
Support.
A favorable recommendation is forwarded to the Zoning Board of Appeals for the required variances.
Support. Sorry.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none. Commissioner Grott?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith?
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner Lapone?
Yes.
Lapone? Commissioner Larray?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Good luck. You want to come get your plaything?
Need a pickup now. Pardon me? Yeah, it's okay.
Next item, we have site plan number 21-29, Charles Shalhoub, for Tap and Barrel. So it took you a couple of days, extra days, but you got here. All right.
I was out of town. Go ahead.
If you name and address,
Tap and Barrel, 50055 Van Dyke.
your name is not Tap and
Matthew
Barrel. I
Aubrey,
don't think.
sorry.
Yeah.
And Chuck Shalhoub.
Okay. What are you requesting of this board?
This is for a decorative fence on the new patio.
Okay. To the planner, Nick, did you cover this one? Why don't you give your
Yes, sir.
review?
Yes, so the applicants added a portion to their outdoor dining area. They're seeking retroactive approval for this. This is already in place. I'm sure some of you have visited the site itself to see exactly what they built. The stuff they added is fairly attractive and it looks good on the site. But with the site plan, I do have a few comments that have to be adjusted on the site plan itself and resubmitted to the township to make sure that they're consistent with our regulations. First, the site plan must be prepared and carry the seal and signature of the registered architect, planner, or surveyor engineer who prepared it. The site plan has to have a location map on it. Notice the scales on the site plan are inconsistent with each other. That has to be corrected. It's a very minor thing to add. Also, 2 benchmarks are required on all site plans for reference. You'll have to identify the size of the site in acres, the height of the trellises that you added, and indicate the hours of operation that you're going to be using the outdoor patio on the site plan itself. Also, the township does not allow outdoor storage in their outdoor dining areas, so we'll just have to see that indicated on the site plan, noted there's no outdoor storage proposed there. And then the rest are from the building department. They want to see it indicated the maximum capacity for the outdoor dining area, so the maximum customers you expect to have out there at any given time. And then there are several outstanding construction permits that have open issues that need to be resolved through the building department. You can address that with the building department as soon as possible, make sure those are closed out. And then also from the building department, you'll have to provide 2 accessible means of egress from the patio itself. And you'll have to provide evidence that the amount of toilet rooms and fixtures will accommodate the increased capacity on that patio. And the last comment is that emergency and exit lighting are required. With that is the last of my comments.
So to the planner, my question is, are these things that have been accomplished that need to be noted somewhere? Or are
Correct.
there some substantial things that need to get changed?
So as far as the accessible means of egress, that was something that have to be adjusted on the site itself. There's a couple of different access points you can use on that patio. As far as providing the evidence that the toilet rooms are adequate for the occupant load, something that can be provided to the building department, and then adding the emergency exit lighting will have to be added to the site.
Okay. So you're clear as what you need to do to improve the site for approval? Okay, because this will be contingent, likely, what decision we made will be contingent on those things happening fairly quickly.
Yes.
All right.
So,
Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Grott?
move to make a motion to approve site plan number 21-29, Charles Shalhoub, Shelby's Property, Inc., with Tap and Barrel 50055 Van Dyke, parcel number 23-07-21-276-012, located north of 22 Mile Road, west side of Van Dyke, outdoor dining patio addition. Approved, subject to the submission of revised site plan addressing all departmental comments.
Support.
Moved by Grott, support by Apone. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none. Commissioner Grott?
Yes.
Commissioner Apone?
Yes.
Commissioner Larray?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
yes.
Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Good luck.
Thank you.
Next item is site plan number 21-28, special land use number 7, Sadier Ebro Ace Auto Wash. This is a public hearing, so I'll ask the secretary to read the notice as it was published.
Charter Township of Shelby, notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission for the Charter Township of Shelby, Macomb County, Michigan, has received a request for approval of the following special land use. Applicant, Sadier Abro, Ace Auto Wash, Shelby 23 Car Wash LLC, 50570 Van Dyke, Shelby Township, Michigan 48317. Proposed use, remodel to existing SLU approved car wash. Location 50570 Van Dyke, south of 23 Mile Road, east of Van Dyke. Site plan number 21-28 SLU-7. Sidwell number 23-07-22-103-026. Legal description is as follows. The Planning Commission will meet on Monday, September 13th, 2021 at 7 p.m. in the Shelby Municipal Building, 52700 Van Dyke, Shelby Township, Michigan, 586-726-7243 for the purpose of holding a public hearing on the special land use application. The application for special land use and the site plan may be examined at the Planning and Zoning Department in the municipal building Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Written comments may be submitted to the Planning Commission at the above address prior to the hearing. Oral comments will be heard during the public hearing. This notice is provided pursuant to the requirements of Michigan Public Act 110 of 2006 as amended. Shelby Township Planning Commission, Jerome Moffett, Chair, Raquel Moore, Secretary. This was published in the Shelby Utica News on August 25th, 2021. There were 54 property owners, and 2 applicants were notified on August 20th, 2021.
Okay, thank you. To the attorney, did the publication meet all legal requirements?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And can you explain the uses under the present zoning and if this special land use request is appropriate to the district?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This site is zoned C2, and is set forth under the C2 zoning standards as well as the special land use standards at section 6.5 of the Shelby Township zoning ordinance. This is an appropriate request.
Great, thank you. To the secretary, did we receive any correspondence on this
Yes,
request?
we did, Mr. Chair. We did receive this as of tonight. Mr. and Mrs. Martz on 8155 Devon, they have a number of questions and things that they're concerned about, the lighting pollution, noise pollution, and another piece of correspondence from Mr. and Mrs. Full. And they are concerned about the noise pollution, some screening, and a decorative brick wall that they would like to see.
Okay, thank you. Format for the public hearing will be as follows. The petitioner or representative will be called up to state what their request, their reasons for it. The commission will then ask questions or offer their comments on what's being requested. I'll then open it up to the floor for any questions or comments. I will note those questions and comments, and when appropriate, I'll bring the petitioner back up to answer those. Again, we don't engage in a debate at this level. The purpose for these public hearings is to sort of educate this body, before we make a recommendation on both sort of the pros and cons and the comments of anything that's being presented to us. With that, I assume the petitioners or representatives are here. One thing I will ask, okay, so name and address on anybody that comes up, sign in when you're done speaking. Give us a little history too, because this looks awful familiar to me. That we've been to this dance a couple of times on this site plan. It seems very similar to what we've looked at before, but why don't you go ahead and, a little bit of history, and then what are you looking to present? What do you want us to do? Approve or recommend?
My name's Austin
Okay,
Newcomb.
make sure you're in the mic, please.
My name is Austin Newcomb, and I'm an architectural designer at Gateway Engineering, which is at 8155 Ansbury Drive. This is Mitesh. He's the civil engineer working on the project, the site designer too.
Same address?
Same
Okay.
address. So we presented a project similar to this last year that was approved by the Planning Commission and the Building Department, and that was under a different client. So this project has been acquired by Ace Auto Wash. So what we're doing here is rebranding this. So what changed from the initial site plan that was submitted was the elevations. So these elevations are gonna match the brand standards that Ace Auto Wash is implying onto their buildings, as opposed to what we did before. And the only change to the site plan is that there isn't a variance any longer, with the canopy. There's not gonna be a canopy, so we didn't need that.
Okay.
But other than that, the site is staying the same. The existing light poles around the perimeter of the site are staying in the same locations, but they're being lowered to a height of 12 feet to accommodate the light pollution issues that the surrounding residential areas were concerned about. We provided a photometric plan that showed that those lights that we are supplying are not going to interfere with the surrounding neighborhood or any of the other adjacent properties. As far as the vacuum sounds go, we're providing adequate landscaping around it's a centralized motor. So there's only one location where this motor is, and that's adjacent to the car wash itself. And so we've located it in a spot that is far enough from the residential zone, and it's covered by trees and other shrubs so that the noise should be reduced as much as possible. And
What are the hours of operations for that? Okay, I'll need your name and your address and when you come to the mic.
Simon Abro, 3569 Sleepy Fox Drive, Rochester. So for the hours will be 8 to 8.
Okay, thank you. So why don't you talk a little bit, because I think a big part of the concern is the landscaping in general on the, because there had been issues, again, probably with prior, as I recall, that there was pollution that up against the east fence. What are you proposing to sort of mitigate that nuisance to those neighbors on Devon?
so we're proposing a screen wall of trees, both evergreens and deciduous trees. And so those are gonna block most of the sound pollution from the vacuums, as well as shrubbery and smaller low-laying plants around the parking lot itself where the vacuums are located. So that should also screen any noise.
Okay, no walls, no fences?
There's an existing block wall at the east end of the property. So
All right, so you're gonna maintain that?
that's gonna remain, yes.
Okay. All right. Anything else? You gotta say something, or they're not gonna pay you. No, all right. I'll bring it back to the board for any questions or comments.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Meredith was first.
The question on decibels for the vacuum, you say there's more than one? I thought there was gonna be a central vac, or is it more than?
There is a central vac, but there's multiple vacuum units that are relying on that central vac system. So they're all going off of that. So all that you're hearing from those vacuums is the suction from the vacuums itself, where the centralized motor is in one location.
Okay,
And that's next
close
to the building. Yeah.
Do you know the decibels of the sound from the machine?
I would have to check with the manufacturer on that. You think it's?
I think it's about 60 hertz, if I'm not mistaken.
50?
Did everyone hear that? 60 hertz?
60.
60, yeah.
60, okay.
Yeah, you can have a conversation while it's running. It's not that loud.
If you're gonna talk, I need you to talk into the microphone.
You can
Thank
have a
you.
conversation like when it's on, so you can actually, it's not pretty loud.
Okay.
And one last question. Previously, you had you're gonna put up a big sign out front, and you're gonna need a variance from the county for that. Is that still in your proposal for the big sign?
So that was a canopy design that was a signature look to that design itself. So that's no longer being provided on this plan. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Turner?
one of the residents concerned about the neon blinking signs. As part of your rebranding exercise, you're not planning on having anything that will draw attention to you like that, right? Blinking signs, come on, get your car washed here?
No, there's not any blinking sign.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I have a question.
Commissioner Moore?
Is there, could you place the vacuums closer, maybe to the building? Or I understand you're saying a central location, but further away from the abutting neighborhood, the single-family residence that is just to the east of you?
So right now we have vacuum units on both sides of the parking lot. Are you suggesting that we remove one side of those?
No, could you move it closer, maybe towards Van Dyke so that maybe the noise wouldn't carry as far?
We could relocate the motor itself towards the road, towards 23 Mile, if that would help out. So that's not a big issue. We have space to do that.
Okay.
I think their point is that the motor is what causes a majority of the noise.
Yeah,
This
that's
actually suction is minimal, and it's inside the car, so it's like, likely not to, and so it's really where you're gonna put that motor. And if you're saying you can move it farther, closer to Van Dyke, farther away from the neighborhood, I think that's a positive.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, sit tight and see what anyone else has to say. You guys can sit down. Okay, this is the only public hearing the planning commission will hold on this special land use request. All remarks will be entered into the record for township board evaluation. We are a recommending body, and the township board will evaluate our recommendation, which is the legislative body. The township board will make the final decision on this special land use request. At this time, anyone in the public is welcome to offer any comments or ask any questions. Okay, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Vicki Martz, and I was just concerned about the sign.
Can I get your address, please?
Oh, 8155 Devon,
Thank you.
right behind the building that they're wanting to do.
Devon, it's a lot classier than when I lived over there.
But
It was
there,
Devon.
but there is a sign that blinks all night long, and it's still there. And it was there yesterday, and the shop's even shut. And then I do have concerns that, are they gonna have the motors off when the building's shut down? So people can't just come and use it in the night. So that makes sense to me anyway, since we live right there and
Sure.
our bedroom's there and, and that's it.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else wish to comment? Going once, going twice. Okay, I'll bring it back to the board and ask the planner to offer her, who did this one? Nick, was this you as well? Yep.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you offer your comments?
Sure, thank you. So as the applicant stated, this is a modification to an existing car wash. The proposed modifications, it's almost a full-scale renovation. It's very attractively designed. It's going to be a significant improvement on the architecture that currently exists on the property. And with their site plan, they did submit I would say, a robust landscaping plan that, in my opinion, will help to mitigate most of the nuisance caused by debris going into other people's yards, noise, and lighting spilling onto other properties. So with that being said, I believe this is a appropriate use for this site, and it fits within the zoning district regulations and the master plan for the township. I will say, though, with my review comments, there is one item that may require a variance if you intend to pursue it. So I'll move into my review comments right now. The maximum allowable height in the zoning district is 25 feet. You guys are proposing 28 feet with your new addition. So if you want to pursue a variance, you have to make it clear, or you can adjust the maximum height of that building. With that being said, you also have to label all relevant easements and right-of-way with library and page number. Professional seal of the engineer or architect should be on all the sheets. You can include the shielding details for proposed lights to reduce potential glare from causing nuisance to neighboring properties. With the proposed hours that you put forth, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., I'd say that satisfies the zoning ordinance. The previous tenant was permitted to do 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. During the summer months, but was restricted to 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. So operating from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., I would say, is well within what was approved for the last site. Also on the site plan, I want you to indicate that there will be no outdoor storage on the site to make sure it doesn't get cluttered. You also have to provide a cross-access agreement with the property to the north. And you already discussed moving the motor for the vacuums closer to Van Dyke, which I think will go a long way to reducing any noise pollution on the neighboring properties. If you do move it closer to Van Dyke, though, we'll request that you provide some sort of enhanced screening in a form of landscaping, so that way it's not overly visible to motorists or pedestrians traveling along Van Dyke. Other than that, the rest of the comments are from the Department of Public Works. The Department of Public Works stated that the proposed layout will require storm sewer relocation, and that storm calculations will have to be rerun for this site due to the addition of the impervious surfaces. And another note too, as far as the blinking and flashing lights or signs go, blinking, flashing signs are not permitted in the township. So if that is an issue, make sure you resolve it real quick.
All set? Okay. Fellas, you want to come back up? So have you taken over the property yet, or is this contingent on you getting approval?
Oh, we have taken care of the property?
You have taken it over?
Yes.
All right, so you'll shut those blinking lights off?
Yes, we are.
There we go. And then how about shutting that was a good point on shutting the motors off at 8 o'clock, can you do
Yeah,
that?
they'll be off. When we close down, those motors goes off.
Okay, so there's no one could have access
No,
to it?
not
Very
overnight.
good. And any issues that the planner raised cause you any grief? Or you accepting of what he said?
Except that.
Cool, all right, thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Support.
Moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. You guys can sit down. Our recommendation on this request must be based on the following standards: compatibility with adjacent land uses, consistent with and promote the intent and purpose of the special land use, capabilities of the natural environment, consistent with the capacities of public services and facilities affected by the proposed use, protect the public health, safety, and welfare, and the adequacy of public access to the site. We may recommend approval this evening, we may disapprove the request, or we can table it to evaluate the information further. At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Turner.
I will move to recommend approval and forward to the Township Board Special Land Use Application Number 21-28 SLU 7 for Sadier Abro for Ace Auto Wash based on the following. The continuation of an auto wash facility at this location is consistent with existing development along this portion of Van Dyke Avenue. The landscaping plan reduces potential nuisance that the site additions may have on surrounding residential properties. Hours of operation will be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. except are we going to do the months of June, July, and August, or just 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. completely, Nick?
It's up to you. The applicant stated 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Right.
and It's quite all right with me.
8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The submission of a revised site plan is required, which incorporates the applicable review comments from the Township Departments, Planning Commission, and Township Engineer.
Support.
Moved by Turner, support by Larray. Is that correct?
Yes.
Very good. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner Larray?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapone?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Grott?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith?
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Good luck. Next item is site plan number 21-18, Thomas Capuso, 49611 Oakland Drive. I'm sure not going to see it down there, so,
No?
yeah. No. Tallish, but not that tall.
We have a second.
Got an easel.
There we go.
Oh, okay.
Is it turned on? Yeah. That's usually my job.
All right. Good evening. Jeff Rizzo with Fenn and Associates, 14933 Commercial Drive, Shelby Township, 48315. And I'm here representing Thomas Capuso. I don't believe he is here tonight. Neither is the architect, but I am handling this presentation. And basically what we're doing is we are proposing an industrial building, multi-tenant building, just over 13,000 square feet. And Mr. Capuso is going to be occupying the rear of the building, so it'd be at the west end, and subleasing the front portion of the building. At least that is the plans at this time. And the building is, basically going to be, painted block, brick, and then some accent pieces and canopies, as you can see on the plans. So it's pretty cut and dry, it's in an industrial subdivision, and, we meet the parking requirements, and feel that we would like your approval tonight.
Okay. I did notice that was there concern with water on the site and mitigating the water, if you've addressed that?
As far as the 100-year floodplain elevation? Yeah, I've contacted AEW because apparently they were going to be doing some topographic mapping in this area on not only our lot, but some of the other lots that around the perimeter. And I haven't heard yet what the findings were.
So you believe it may not be an issue?
Yeah, I don't believe it is. I mean, there is a floodplain that was platted, and I know that, our office backs up to the Longstaff drain, and, a couple years ago, we did add some flooding in the parking lot, and it did recede, so. But, yeah, I don't believe it's an issue, but I would like to see what AEW, comes up with their study.
Okay. How about what landscaping you're proposed to put on the site, if any?
Yeah, we're proposing some landscaping. We have,
'Cause you do abut the Shelby Forest mobile.
Yes. Yeah, so we do have of course, the 6-foot-high screen wall in the back. There are some existing trees, that we plan on leaving. And then we are adding, as you can see, 4 trees in the westerly green area, and a couple trees in front, and of course, some shrubs down in front of the building.
Okay. All right. To the planner for her comments. Oh, Nick, is that you too?
Thank you.
Yep, sorry.
So yeah, as Mr. Rizzo said, this is a 2-unit industrial building. They satisfy all the parking requirements, the street tree requirements. The building itself is, in line with the other developments along this part of the township. It's not out of line. The biggest concern I would have with this is the major 2 screening that's required between 2 incompatible uses, in this case, an industrial building and the Shelby Forest Manufactured Home Park to the west. Your 50-foot green belt is required, which you provide. Also, a 6-foot-high decorative masonry wall is required, which is also provided. Additionally, though, there's also supposed to be 3 trees per 20 feet, with a maximum spacing of 12 feet between the trees, and 4 shrubs per 20 feet within that green buffer, to make sure that there's less noise pollution on the surrounding properties. And with the flooding that's been experienced in the mobile home park there to the west, I think adding these trees and shrubs would be beneficial to not only this property, but those properties as well. With that, that's my major concern with this site. But other than that, my comments are identifying library and page number for all easements and relevant right-of-ways. A tree permit will be required if you remove any of the regulated trees in the property, but it sounds like you do not plan on removing any trees. You also have to indicate there is no outdoor storage proposed on this site, and clearly indicate the loading and unloading zones on the property. Other than that, the rest of the comments are from the Building Department and the Department of Public Works. The Department of Public Works states that no construction may start prior to engineering approval, which sounds like you still have some potential issues you may have to work out with AEW there. From the Building Department, they're concerned about the significant flooding in close proximity to this lot. So it'll be subject to township engineer review to verify the proposed development will not further flooding the area, which it sounds like you're on par with. An easement must be secured from the abutting property owner as the building is being constructed along the property line. You have that 0 lot line on the north property line. And any work in the floodplain will require Eagle approval with this site. That's all I have.
Okay. To the board, any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Graff?
I propose usage for the property, this is industrial, correct? Any restrictions on usage for example, for?
All principal permitted uses in light manufacturing zone are allowed in this parcel.
So there's a potential that this could become marijuana?
Yes, this site is outside of the protected distance for the medical marijuana facilities. It's now within 300 or 500-foot line of any protected uses like schools, places of worship, childcare facilities, art parks. So that would be a permitted use in this building.
Okay. Can you tell us what you're planning to do with it?
That's a great question. I know that my client, he does own a business, Capuso Gutters. So I don't know if he plans on moving his operations there or if this is just going to be an office for himself and for his development company. I'm actually not 100% sure. I just know that he wants to occupy, a good portion of the rear of the building. And I'm not sure what type of tenant he wants up front. But I have not heard anything about a marijuana facility at all. I can tell you that.
Well, okay, I trust you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I intend to support it, but I trust you on your comment.
Thank you.
Any issues with what the planner had raised?
As
in
far as the
terms of-
landscaping goes, we can certainly meet that requirement. If it's a township requirement that we beef up the landscaping, we'll certainly do that. The other items that Nick mentioned, we can address those as well.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
I move to approve site plan 21-18 for Thomas Capuso, 49611 Oakland Drive, Hayes Tech Industrial Subdivision, Lot 15, parcel number 23-07-24-426-015, north of 22 Mile Road, west side of Hayes, 13,344 square foot industrial building, subject to the submission of a revised site plan addressing all department comments, which includes adding additional landscaping abutting Shelby Forest.
Support.
Support.
Moved by Moore, support by Apone. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none. Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Apone?
Yes.
Commissioner Larray?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner Grott?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith?
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Good luck to your
Thank you.
client.
That's 4 in a row, huh?
Sure. Now you can take it with you. Ain't mine, no. Next item, site plan number 21-32, Frank Toma, Clearview Auto Wash. So you getting paid twice today?
Yeah.
Tough work if you can get it.
Yep.
All right, name and address again, please.
Austin Newcomb, and that's 8155 Ansbury Drive, Gateway Engineering.
Thank you. What are we asking for this evening?
So for this property, this is an existing operational car wash, and this is located on 23 Mile between Shaner and Hayes. And so we're not changing anything with the site on this project besides the addition of the canopy structure that is the signature element of Cleanview Auto Wash. So that's going to extend towards 23 Mile out from the exit of the car wash. And the distance is shown on the plans of how far that extends out. And then we're also renovating the facade materials of the entire building, so that we can match the rest of the Cleanview Auto Wash locations. So that's going to be kind of their new brand standard, which is this dark and light tile combination, as well as the yellow metal canopy. And then the only other thing is that we're adding a couple larger windows along the west wall. And that's along where the car wash actually is located, so that you can see into the operational car wash portion of the building. And that's it.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, thank you. To the planner, not Nick this time, really?
Thank you, Chairman. The proposed addition of the canopy and the upgrade of the facade materials are consistent with the zoning ordinance requirements. As far as setback requirements, that extension into the front yard meets those setback requirements, the materials along with the height. The only issue is they are proposing a sign on the front of the canopy, and they also have one on the building, so they are only allowed one wall sign. If you wish to continue to leave the sign on the canopy, you're gonna have to seek a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay, can we do one or the other? Can we keep the one on the canopy instead of the building? Okay.
Sure, that would be fine. Other than that, the building department has some issues that are outstanding that they will need to contact Mr. Wood and resolve those issues with the building department. But other than that, the site is in compliance with the zoning ordinance.
Okay. So it doesn't encroach into the right-of-way?
It does
So
not.
it's really just about the second signage? Okay.
Correct.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Chairman Moffett, one question on the windows, east side or west side of the building?
Let me check. It would be on the west side of the building.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
I move to approve site plan 21-32 for Frank Toma for Clearview Auto Wash, 14255 23 Mile Road, parcel number 23-07-13-300-011, located on the north side of 23 Mile Road between Shaner Road and Hayes, subject to satisfying the building department issues, along and offering a favorable recommendation from the Zoning Board of Appeals for the proposed sign on the canopy, but that actually is being removed, correct? You're just having one sign?
Yeah, I will have to talk with the client to see which one they want to keep, and so it might be the canopy or the building, so.
I think you can make the motion that if they do decide to keep the second sign, that
Then
they-
it will have to go to
so
the
if-
ZBA.
And if they choose not to, then it's a moot point. They won't have to do anything.
Okay.
Okay,
That makes sense.
yes, makes sense.
Support.
Moved by Moore, support by Turner. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none. Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner Pone?
Yes.
Commissioner Lorey?
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Grott?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Good luck
Thank you.
to your client. Next item, conditional rezoning petition number 03-21 and site plan number 21-30. Giovanni Alua, Louis, Olympia Homes, and Michael Danello, Vanguard Companies LLC. This is a public hearing, so I'll ask the secretary to read the notices published.
Charter Township of Shelby, notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission for the Charter Township of Shelby, Macomb County, Michigan, has received a request for approval of the following amendment to the zoning map. Applicant Giovanni Alua, Olympia Homes, and Michael Danello, Vanguard Companies LLC, 49480 Van Dyke, Shelby Township, Michigan, 48317. Rezoning request from R1B, one family residential, to R8, multifamily low-rise. Conditional rezoning petition 03-21 and site plan number 21-30 includes a site plan proposing a multifamily development of 68 townhomes. Location, part of 49454 Shaner Road, parcel number 23-07-24-300-003, and part of 13845 22 Mile Road, parcel number 23-07-24-300-039, located on the east side of Shaner, north of 22 Mile Road. Sidwell number 23-07-24-300-003 and 23-07-24-300-039. Legal description is as follows. The Planning Commission will meet on Monday, September 13th, 2021, at 7 p.m. in the Shelby Municipal Building, 52700 Van Dyke, Shelby Township, Michigan, 586-726-7243, for the purpose of holding a public hearing on the conditional rezoning application. The application for rezoning, site plan, zoning ordinance text, and zoning map may be examined at the Planning and Zoning Department in the municipal building Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Written comments may be submitted to the Planning Commission at the above address prior to the hearing. Oral comments will be heard during the public hearing. This notice is provided pursuant to the requirements of Michigan Public Act 110 of 2006 as amended. Shelby Township Planning Commission, Jerome Moffitt, Chair, Raquel Moore, Secretary. This is published in the Shelby Utica News on August 25th, 2021. There were 291 property owners, 3 applicants, and 9 utilities were notified on August 20th, 2021.
Okay, thank you. To the attorney, did the publication meet all legal requirements?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it does.
Okay, thank you. To the secretary, were there any additional correspondence with regard to this request?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this evening, we did receive correspondence from the Homeowners Association from Heritage Place Condominiums, Silver Birch Condominiums, and Miss Deborah Crane.
Previously, we had also received some petitions that had been signed and some other correspondence that had been sent over the last several weeks. So that was included in each one of the board members' packets, and have had at least a week to review it all, so. The format for this public hearing will be as follows. The petitioner and/or representatives will give a presentation stating what they're requesting and the reasons for it. I'll then turn it back to the board for the commissioners to offer their comments or ask any questions. I'll then open the floor up to the public. And again, I'll need name and address, and after you speak, I'll need you to sign in. Again, it's not a debate. We'll take all information. We'll take everyone's comments that wants to speak, and we'll be as patient as we need to be. And then we'll bring the petitioner back up to address any comments or questions that are raised. With that, I'll ask the representatives.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Planning Commission. My name is Jim Epping, J. Epping Partners, 9336 Sashabaw Road, Clarkston. I'm representing tonight Mr. Giovanni Aluya and Mike Danello, who are both in the audience, the developers of the proposed development. And with me tonight is also Pete Snyder of Urban Land Consultants. We've been with you, I think this is our third Planning Commission meeting, talking about this property, so we appreciate the opportunity to come back. In previous meetings, we had a pre-application meeting and then a Planning Commission meeting, at which time we were seeking a simple rezoning. At that point, the Planning Commission certainly had some questions and comments, as well as did the area residents. And so what we've done tonight is come back and coupled that with a rezoning, a conditional rezoning, a request for a conditional rezoning, as well as preliminary site plan. I think there was some reasonable questions as to, hey, what are you going to do with this plan? At that point, we had proposed to simply rezone it and then come forward with our plan, which remains consistent with what we're proposing. But we thought it made sense to tie the two together to give the board and the community some assurances. And so what I'd like to do tonight is just go through a few details that have been submitted to the Planning Commission and to the Township, and answer every question that you have before us tonight.
Okay. Can everyone hear? Okay, sometimes the microphone gets a little, all right, thank you.
So what we're talking about is a piece of property that's essentially on the northeast corner of 22 Mile and Shaner Road in the township, so it's sort of the southern end or midsection of the township, section 24. Really, the property is probably mostly identified right now as the back of the Macomb Christian Church. We are working with the church. The church will remain on 22 Mile Road. We are proposing to purchase the rear half of their open land, and then a piece of property going out to out to Shaner Road. And currently, the total parcel right now is about 17.5 acres. You'll see through our application that we're proposing splitting this land, maintaining some of its current R1B and special land use for the church, and then rezoning essentially the interior portion of the land to R8. What we do know, what we've presented in the past, and what we're adding to that now is a little more assuredness in the site plan. The R8 zoning is important to note that it is consistent with the township's master plan. It's consistent with the adjacent zoning both to the east and to the west. There's R8 zoning both in Silver Birch and in Heritage East to the east and west, R1B to the north, and commercial and O1 office to the southeast, southwest. As I say, the land use patterns are consistent. We're proposing townhomes, multifamily housing in the middle of existing multifamily housing. So R8 to the east, R8 to the west. Ours would be consistent both with those land uses and with the master plan. The Macomb Christian Church and its building are proposed to remain. They won't change at all. And then there's also an existing R1B single-family home up on Shaner Road that is also proposed to remain as a single-family home in R1B zoning, and you'll see that we're just redefining that property, still keeping it consistent with the zoning ordinance, but making that parcel slightly smaller so that this new proposed R8 would have access out to Shaner Road. The master plan, your master plan is real clear about this site. This falls within what they call a mixed-use residential portion of the township. You'll see on that section 24, it really takes this larger area, both to the north and south of 22, east and west of this site, to be a larger R8 or mixed-use residential. The planners do a nice job in their review letter of explaining exactly what the intent, I think, of the master plan is at that point in terms of uses of townhomes, mixed-use buildings, attached, detached, apartments, live works, small lot residential, all those different types of things in this R8 zoning or mixed-use residential zoning. As I said, this is an aerial shot of the property. It shows the existing conditions. Currently, right now, there are 2 pieces of property. We're proposing to essentially create 3 pieces of property. So the R1B zoning on the church, which I believe is a special land use, would remain consistent in what we're calling Parcel A. Parcel B would be that R1B lot to the northwest, and then Parcel C would be the new lot created, which would be about just over 10.5 acres of R8. What's interesting is it is consistent, as I say, with zoning to the east and to the west in the R8. R1B is existing on the top of the site or the north of the site, and that's consistent with area land on the west side of Shaner. What our property proposes, what I'll go through in just a second, is even though we are adjacent to R8, your ordinance doesn't necessarily require setbacks or buffers between it, but we are proposing as part of our conditional use that will create really large and substantial buffers even between our R8 proposed zoning and the adjacent R8 zoning. It's also interesting to see as you go into our site plan that our buildings, our proposed buildings, are substantially further away from the residential homes to the north. The properties to the east of us have about a 25-foot setback. Ours are greater than 135 feet. The site plan, which wasn't a condition of the previous request, we are now making this very specific site plan a condition of our application and a condition of the rezoning. So what that means, at least as the way I understand the ordinance, is this site plan does become part of any type of rezoning that the Planning Commission, ultimately the board, may consider. We're proposing 13 buildings, 13 multi-family buildings. They'd be proposed or combined of 3 different architectural styles, all townhomes, all built as essentially single attached housing. What that means is there's no common hallways, no common building areas within the building. They're front doors, attached garages, multi-story townhouse type units. We have 3 different styles, and you'll see how those fit with on the land. Going back to the site plan, we do have the Ruby and the Cafleck drain that go through the site. Those are controlled by the county. Those will, of course, stay. We've already started working with the county, although it's a long process. We know there'll have to be some improvements that will be on our shoulders, but those will, of course, be directed and controlled by the County Drain Commission. What's great about these drains is they are currently buffered with substantial trees, evergreens, deciduous, shrubs, undergrowth scrub, which is not only pretty, but it gives a lot of privacy and barrier to the neighbors to the north, east, and the west. That buffer is going to remain. The drains, of course, will remain. We'll work with the county, and as we improve those drains or clear those drains, we'll follow their direction, but the intent is to leave all of that landscaping, all of that natural area for buffer and for beauty. Since our last meeting, we've really done our best to communicate with the neighbors, and we've done that in 2 different ways. And what I mean by that is we've sent out on 2 different occasions over 300 letters to the adjacent neighbors, essentially using the list that the township uses for notifications, as well as the list of anybody who's spoken at prior meetings when we were doing those on Zoom. And so we sent out a letter just explaining our intent and tried to be as clear about that as possible. We received some comments back, and so we sent another letter with some additional clarification and items. But really what it did is it came down to, a handful of questions that were very consistent, and I think good questions that needed to be answered. So I wanted to put them into the record. I'll read them real quickly here and then turn the meeting back to you, Mr. Chairman. But I wanted to dispel any disbelief or misinformation, as well as just put what we think is the information out there. So how do we, speaking for the community, how do we know exactly what will be built, and what are the guarantees that this will actually be put in place? In other words, are we saying one thing but we'll build another? As part of the conditional rezoning, your ordinance provides safeguards within its ordinance that ultimately, should you recommend approval, that the conditions, which are the landscape plan, the architectural plan, the site plan, everything is set out just the way as we've proposed it here, that becomes the mandate, and any variation from that just simply wouldn't be permitted, or if it did, we'd have to come back to the Planning Commission and essentially start over. So the safeguard is, should you consider this, that the plan and our guarantees are, in fact, what must be built. What happens if the property is sold? Well, if the property is sold, that approval, that site plan, that architectural plan goes with the plan and with the property. So it's not our intention to sell it, it's our intention to develop it, but should it be sold, that future landowner would be obligated to the exact same controls, or they'd be welcome to come back, I suppose, and either amend it or start the process over. But if we were to sell it, it wouldn't change. What happens to the drains? Well, again, those are controlled by the county. We know that there'll be some clearing, will improve the flow of those, improve the capacity. Counties always like to take advantage of kind of our equipment on site, and so those will be improved. We'll do it in accordance with the county standards, but we'll really try to minimize that in terms of any disturbance, because those trees are a benefit not only to the existing neighbors, but a benefit to us. Is this density permitted within the proposed zoning or adjacent zoning, the R8? Yes, the zoning the density that we are proposing is permitted within the R8 zoning, what we're asking to be changed for. In fact, on the 10.5 acres, a little greater than 10.5 acres, mathematically, we could put about 88 units on this property. We're only proposing 68, so we're proposing less than what would be maximized at the R8 zoning. And I believe, based on the studies I've done, we've actually have less density than on either of the adjacent parcels. What happens if what happens to the trees and vegetation on the buffers? Again, we're proposing or guaranteeing that we'll maintain an 80-foot buffer on the east up against silver birch, about 130-foot buffer onto the north up against the residential. Before we get to the detention pond, the building is quite a bit further south than that, and then a 50-foot buffer on the east. There's not as many existing trees on the east, but our landscape plan shows that where we're going to improve the landscape really all throughout the site. Here's the big one that I know people have been wondering about, and fairly so. Will the townhomes be sold or rented? What I first did is I looked at the ordinance, and what's interesting to me is the township ordinance for multifamily doesn't stipulate whether a multifamily building be sold or rented. There's nothing in your ordinance that says, hey, if this is this type of zoning, it must be rented, or if it's this type, it must be sold. But it's a fair question nonetheless. Our intent and what we are doing is building these homes to be for sale units. Again, these are townhomes, detached townhomes. They'll be individually addressed. They'll have individual water meters, individual gas meters and so forth, individual doors and individual garages. It's our intent that these be for sale units. At the same time, we know we're into a long process. It's almost the end of the year. We'll go through engineering and drain permitting and all the permitting next year. We'll do the underground the following year. Realistically, we will not be coming out of the ground or have units ready to be occupied until the end of 2023 or possibly the spring of 2024. Again, it's our intent that these are going to be for sale units. They're going to be built that way, but under your ordinance, we would, if the economy changes, we ultimately would either have the opportunity to rent them or sell them, not unlike really any home in the community. Certainly, there's homes in you know, the R1B to the north and to the east and the west that are probably owned individually but being rented right now. And so we would, you know, maintain that like any other development in the community, but it is our intent to build and sell these. Right now, if we were to sell them, they'd be in the mid-300s. And so if that did get converted to a rent, you can see that, you know, they'd probably be $2,000 a month rents. Can the area traffic be handle more cars at this location? Yes, according to the Road Commission, they just improved Shaner Road. The county actually dictated where the curb cut is on Shaner and actually built A-cell, D-cell lanes. So the county improved the road, dictated that access point, and really based all their growth projections and all their geometry on the master plan, on the current zoning, on the proposed zoning. So it is anticipated based at this density. Will the traffic from the church cut through? I think that's a good question because every Sunday that's going to get busy. We are going to have an access point connecting our development road to the church. That's going to be gated and just an emergency access point. So there'll be no through traffic, but should the fire police have to get through there, they'll be able to do that. Will the ponds be wet or dry? They'll be wet. They'll retain water. They'll be wet ponds with landscaping, with fountains, so they'll be real pretty. And lastly, is the proposal consistent with the Township's master plan? As I mentioned earlier, yes, the plan, the master plan identifies this as a mixed residential use that does anticipate developments like are currently situated to the east and west that are currently proposed here, townhomes, apartments, mixed use, live works, those type of developments within this zoning. These are attached single-family dwellings. So, in summary, we are proposing a conditional rezoning and preliminary site plan. Our conditions are the site plan and the details that we've provided, the landscape plan, the architecture as proposed and as promised, consistent with the master plan, adjacent zoning, and so forth. So, I appreciate your time. We're here to answer any questions and look forward to ideally having your recommendation to move forward.
Okay, thank you. To the board, do the commissioners have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Turner.
Mr. Epping, when you came in last time, I had suggested we get some more information, and I certainly appreciate what I've seen. I said back then, and I believe tonight, that an R8 in between two R8s makes more sense than an R1B sandwiched between two R8s, so I would agree with you on that, the rezoning. However, there is a point that was brought up in here that I'm going to make clear. You want us to accept an R8, and yet you then want us to give a favorable recommendation for a variances for the setbacks between the buildings. I'm not inclined to do that. I'm inclined to say if we're going to go with R8, then you should build R8. And if that requires a 28-foot setback between the buildings, then it should be a 28-foot setback, not 15. If that means you have to reduce the density a little bit to make it fit, then as I see it, and it's just me, that's what I think needs to be done. So I just want to get that out there to let you know, while I agree with the overall rezoning plan, I do not agree with granting any variances for the plan.
Do you have any sense?
Mr. Chairman, may I respond?
Yeah, but let me ask a question too, when you respond to him. What would that mean in terms of the number of units that you wouldn't develop on the site? What would that number be?
We haven't done that study, but let's say we have 13 buildings, you essentially lose 1 unit per building, so we'd lose, you know, roughly 10 to 13 units, which would be significant. What we looked at from a planning point of view is, you know, a conditional rezoning is somewhere between a straight zoning and a PUD. And a PUD grants the Planning Commission, just as a conditional rezoning would grant the Planning Commission the ability to grant deviations, let's call them. If we go to the ZBA, it would be a variance. In this case, what we tried to do is prioritize the setting, the neighbors, and the land. And so, based on the community's feedback, which was substantial over the last several meetings, and the Planning Commission's feedback, we prioritized the rear setbacks and essentially created a cluster plan that took the development and brought it inward into the area. Now we could, you know, if you just think geometrically, if we could take that development and push it out and create those space between the buildings by essentially widening our elbows. But what that would do is contract those buffers, those rear buffers. So from a priority point of view, we thought it was a better fit for the community to guarantee those rear buffers and those tree buffers on the back, and cluster the development in the center. So, you know, realistically, if that is the mandate, then probably what I would do is at least recommend to my client, hey, let's look at it. If we're gonna widen out if we need to gain more space in between the units, then how do we do that without making the project economically inviable? And part of that likely may be pushing it out. Now, that's certainly not a threat, but as a planner, those are the types of things I think about. From a fire code point of view, the National Fire Code allows us to go 10-foot, 15-foot. We think gives it that, you know, kind of nice townhouse look without pushing it too far out. So I certainly understand what you're saying. I would ask you to reconsider based on the ability to provide those larger rear setbacks.
See, I'm looking at the plan, and I only see 6 units with 15 feet setback between, so you're talking 13?
As I say, I didn't look at it in that regard, but my first boss told me the profit's really made on the last 10%, and so even eliminating 6 units on a project that's already theoretically could sustain 80 or greater units. Our previous plans had 72, and we brought that down to 68, so we have made strides to reduce density and have reasonable densities. But certainly, and I can't speak for Mike and Giovanni without doing the numbers, but there does reach a point at which it's economically viable or not. I don't know if we're there, but again, I think it's a higher priority from my perspective to maintain those buffers in the rear for the adjacent neighbors.
Okay, I hear you. Don't agree, but I hear you.
All right.
Thank you.
I saw 4, but.
4? There's 4.
You might,
4, yeah, 4 areas where that 15-foot is.
Okay. Which, no, it's a good point. But I also want to give just acknowledgement that, I mean, if R8 is appropriate, they could build 88 sites, so there are spots, so they're already reducing 20. And and I think the point is valid that if it then encroaches into the neighbors in each direction to try to accommodate that, you know, it may be wiser just to allow it on those 4s, but again, we'll
R8
debate
also
that.
allows 3 stories, and we're keeping it at 2 stories.
Yeah. Any other commissioner want to comment?
Chairman Wappen, I had a question on the drain. Does this drain tie into the Dutton drain on the other side, the south side of 22? Because of the issues with the drainage over there before, I just had a question,
I
that's
think
all.
there's a guy who might know a little bit about the drains in Shelby Township.
Pete Snyder, Urban Land Consultants, 8800 23 Mile Road, Shelby Township, Michigan, the civil engineer on the project. Yeah, these Ruby and Catholic drains, they're sort of corporately part of the Shelby consolidated system, and they've been reworked. Right now, the reason that we're proposing the offline detention basins is that we don't want to propose the detention. We're allowed to that detention volume was provided for in the Shelby Consolidated and in the drains because they are so wide and so big. But we wanted to avoid that detention because we know once we do that, it's going to trigger a requirement from the drain office to clean those suckers out. And we really don't want to do that. So we provided these detention ponds offline to control the site drainage itself. And then, so really the system, the drainage system that's working out there right now, the response is going to be essentially the same as it's working right now because the detention ponds will capture the site water and let it out at a trickle, usually right after the peak rainfall has come through. So, yeah. If that answers your question, if you have a further question about it, that's fine, but we're working on that one.
About that, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
point of clarification, are you going to ask the public to comment, then it's going to come back to us?
That's the process, yeah.
Awesome, thank you. I knew that. Just double
You
check.
can speak whenever you want, Mr. Grant.
Well, no, after the comment,
Okay.
after the public.
Very good. All right, so is that, anyone else wish to comment? This is the only public hearing the Planning Commission will hold on this rezoning request. Your remarks will be entered into the record for Township Board evaluation. The Planning Commission is a recommending body. The Township Board will take into consideration these comments when making the final decision on the rezoning. At this point, anyone in the public is free to offer a comment or ask a question. I will take note of the questions, and then once all have been asked, I'll bring the petitioner back up or call on staff to do the best to answer the issues that are raised this evening. Come in. There's no rhyme or reason how I choose folks, so don't take offense. But if I can get name and address, please, and then after you speak, there's a little pad there if you could sign in, but after you speak. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I'm Mary Ann Sigler, and I'm from the Board of Directors of Heritage Place West. And I live at 49595 Laurel Heights, and that's Shelby Township. And there's a couple of things. First, about the drains. We have a lot of water problems in Heritage Place West. We've put in many dollars into clearing up drain problems, and I'm talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. So there is a problem. I don't know when you did corrections to the drain, but this is as of this past year. So it's still a very current problem, okay? The other thing is the traffic studies. Even though they widened Shaner, they didn't widen 22. And even on Shaner, if you really go there and watch the traffic during the day, you could see, I don't care if it's in the morning when the time starts or when the buses come or at the end of the day, you can't even get onto the road for at least 10 minutes waiting for traffic to get through. It's gotten so bad out there. And the 120 extra cars estimated to go through there during that would definitely create additional problems. Again, with the drains, we have a lot of problem, and we understand that this is consistent with the master plan, but I think there still needs to be more studies on the traffic and more studies on the water base that is definitely creating a lot of financial issues with us. And then the boundaries south of the church, where they said they would retain the trees in that, those trees are dying, and some of them are ready just to fall in some of the areas. And we've tried to work with the church to have them removed, but they haven't. So they're not healthy trees that really should remain on the border, because they are.
I'm sorry, just so I understand, the trees that are sort of north of the drain there?
It would be north of the Decker drain, but it's the south of the church. Oh, wait a minute.
It's 21.
Not south of the church. It's on the other side of the east. Right, I'm sorry.
To the church, got it. All right, thank you.
So we still have some problems. And again, we had a lot of petitioners between all those places along that area that does still have many concerns of what potentially can happen with the additional residential areas out there, the additional condos. The other thing is that it's a conditional plan, and I do understand he said that if they decided to sell, that they would have to follow the same plan, but they don't have to. They can come back to the board and have to propose something new at the time.
And we do this all over again.
Right. So they do have, and I understand they said that the houses would be around 350, but they do have a concern that at time of market, when they hit the market, we don't know what it's going to be like when the market hits 2 or 3 years down the road, and it could end up with apartments that could not be definitely to the area. So there are many concerns of the residents, and I'm just trying to voice some of them that we've talked about and have had many meetings. And they did take the time to sign the petitions and send the letters to all of the board and trustees, so the planning. So we do appreciate any consideration that you would have going forward with the plan, and that if you do go forward with the plan, that you try and meet some of our requirements in the process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hello. My name is Laura Chizzy, and I live at 49113 Philadelphia Court, Heritage Place West condominiums. I would like to know how much pedestrian traffic are we going to have with all these new condos and people cutting through, walking their dogs? Because my condo faces 22 Mile where the barn was, where the old barn and the house. So right now, I'm just looking at 22 Mile. How many people are going to be cutting through with their dogs and their babies and cutting through all our properties? I'm going to say 90% of us are seniors. I may not look like one, but I am. And I'm a mad one right now. And I don't get mad. I'm a hippie, so I keep my composure. But, yeah. So that's what I want to know, is how much traffic, how are you going to stop them people from cutting through? Amen. Thank you. That's all I have to say, because I'm nervous now.
Okay. It's another meeting. Sir, you can come on up. Sir?
Yes, I'm Nicholas Kozak. This is my 45th year in Shelby Township. And I'm quite concerned, and I have to disagree about the traffic assessment.
Can I get your address, please?
Pardon?
Address. Your address.
4945 Eichner. As you can tell, I'm on the interstate. I call it the interstate. There is so much traffic. It lasts all day long, late into the night. Now, you add the density of more population. We have more cars. Everybody has 2 cars. So I want to know their access routes. From what I'm looking at here, it doesn't show that driveway could be right in front of my house. That's a real problem. I just can't see that that it's necessary for Shelby Township to engage in changing the code or the zoning ordinance. It should remain the same. You can put housing in there, far less, and gain more capital for Shelby Township than you can with this assessment right here. If they start renting these out, which they will, if they can't sell them, they're going to rent them. And then you got, everyone knows we have with rental problems.
I don't know who they are, but, all right.
Okay, yeah, you can rent out a house, but there aren't that many houses that are rented out. People buy houses. The second thing is the traffic. We have now the Dixon Sibley racetrack. I don't know, I'm an old timer, so I know Dixon Sibley, when you had the hot rods, from 22 Mile North, you got a drag strip. It's not enforced. The police, we don't have enough police. Okay, more density, more people, you're gonna need more police. I don't think, I'm totally against it, especially if that thing is gonna come out where I'm looking at headlights all day long and night. So, not to say the developments don't look nice, they do. But I don't think they're meant for this area. We are full of traffic every day. Sunday night at 8 o'clock, it finally slows down to nothing. But that's it for the whole week. So I object to the rezoning.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Al Miyake, 49308 Mackinac Court, Shelby Township, Heritage Place West. Been a resident for 22 years. I was very active in the petition drive, as well as collecting letters from all of my neighbors, and also a lot of discussion with my neighbors and people from other courts. The biggest objection that I picked up was if there's any chance we have a master landlord renting units, they were dead against it. And when I think of rentals, I look at the Shelby News every week, and 40% of the crime that's committed against property or people are in apartment complexes. The one at Ryan and 59, 23 in Shelby Road, or 22 in Shelby Road, and on and on and on with the crime problems in these rental properties. The last thing people that have been living in single-family units, owning them, is to have someone drop a rental property in the middle of them. I'm sure all these gentlemen that are proposing this wouldn't like it, them dropping it next door to them, just like we don't like any proposal like that in our particular community. So from everything that I see and all the people I've talked to and all petitions I gathered, no one wants anybody to have any chance of renting properties in the middle of our association. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Board, good evening. My name is Greg Carpenter. I live at 13618 Lancaster Drive. I've lived there since 1994. It's a lovely place to live. My wife and I have lived there, and we want to continue living there. But we do have some concerns, and basically, I agree with everything that everybody's said so far. And it's all been the truth. And I'm looking at the planning zone here, and I live just north of Jane, which is the house here. They're going to leave it at R1B. And from my house to these condos or apartments, whatever they are, there's 6 bushes between that wall and that wall 2 times, probably 100 feet, 150 feet. You know, no privacy anymore. You know, it just drives away all the privacy of our home. And we feel like our property values are going to fall. And it's just I'm here tonight asking you to not approve this rezoning request. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for allowing us to speak. My name is Denise Gunkel. I live at 49423 Northwood Court, Shelby Township, Heritage Place West. As much as everybody is talking about the traffic and everything, my concern is the water. I run north along that property, and my sub pump, which houses for 4 units, literally with no exaggeration goes off every 3 seconds. I've lived there since 2004, and every year I get a brand new sub pump. We are built on an artesian area that should have never been built. It should have never been there. There's the Decker drain, there's the Ruby drain, and my backyard usually is where ducks live. So any disruption in this, these drains are not working. Any elevation, any people coming in and doing this is just gonna cause more things, and that's what scares me. I'm a snowbird. I love the fact that I get to go away, but then I have to worry and have cameras all over. As far as the trees and the beauty that they were talking about, it is all weeds. They're all vines, they're poison ivy. There's nothing beautiful about the surrounding perimeter. The other thing is that they're going to say that they're going to try to sell them. We don't have a crystal ball, and the words of whatever the market bears scares me to death, because you never know what the market bears. So, the birch pine, on silver birch on one side, they are owned, we are owned. So anything in the middle is scary to think that if they are rentals, who's gonna live there and take care of the property? I'm not saying anything about rentals. I was a renter for many, many years. But in now today's age, we have to worry about that kind of thing. So please think hard, think long. If this is what you wanna do, think about your sub pump going off every 3 seconds and worry that you're gonna come home not only to my condo, but the other 3 condos and the community around us. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dina Shindaddy, 49116 Philadelphia Court, Shelby Township, Michigan, 48315. Taking care of my 89-year-old dad in his condo in Heritage West, and love it there. How quiet, how respectful everyone is. I believe that bringing this new structure rental housing in is not a good idea. I feel that it's gonna amp up our noise, amp up our riffraff. It's just, it's not It shouldn't be done. I have a problem with flooding. I also have the sump pump in my basement. I also have to worry about all that stuff overflowing with the sewer the way it is, and I'm just opposed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Chris Urban, Shelby, 13672 Lancaster. I've been a resident here for 42 years. I abut the property. I have to agree with everybody that's made their comments already. Transient people coming in and out. What do we want transients for on rentals? That's ridiculous. As far as they've done really virtually nothing as far as area beautification. Very, very limited. So I'm really opposed to this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sir, can I get you to sign in, please?
John Milanowski, 13902 Graham, Shelby Township, Michigan. You say you don't want it trapped in between, the new area trapped in between the R1Bs or R18, I don't know which one it is, but the church is zoned R18 along with the subdivision and the home. So what would be the difference there? It's still trapped either way. You either trap north and south or east and west. Well, not all west, because the home is R18. When I counted, we have 19 entrances from 22 Mile to our subdivision, which is Lancaster. There's 19 entrances into Shaner. If you count the church that cuts through the funeral home now, it'd be 20. They actually added a driveway from their driveway to theirs. When I asked for the information, this is what we got, these 3 pieces of paper. I asked about when we had these Zoom meetings, I asked how were they getting over the water. That's never been answered. I've asked how much they are. We didn't get any information on any of that. And they can't go farther back north because of the drain anyways. And I agree with everybody that's all here complaining about the same thing. And when the road was done, that church had asked to have a parking lot back there, not homes. So the road commission does not know about that and could not know about that because I was there, I fought the parking lot. Their driveway is also gonna cover one of the drains that come from the Golden Lakes, which nobody over there knows about the meeting. And I believe that's all. Like I said, there's already 19 entrances and exits within a quarter mile or less than a quarter mile. And now you're gonna add another 150 cars? I think that's gonna be a little too much.
Okay, if you could sign in, sir.
Name's Thomas Seibert. I'm at 49333 Sheridan Court. I'm on the east side of this project, and what they're proposing here is a 50-foot buffer between our east side Heritage to Complex West Complex. 50 feet is not a big buffer, and I don't know if they're aware of it, and it's on your master plan, the 2 Artesian well streams that go underneath this property, and like they've already stated, the condo shouldn't even been built there in the first place because of our water problem and flooding problem. And one of the things I really have a problem with when listening to everything is, and I agree with everything everybody said, they actually took a lot of my questions off, is in order to comply with the zoning ordinance that's the gentleman over here provided, he said, well, we can just encroach on the buffers. Well, with 50 feet on the east side of the buffer, that doesn't leave much of a buffer.
And he says, this is not a threat. And to me, that's a threat. You know, I take that very personally, because I live there. And we have a very close-knit community. And like they said, let me put it this way. We tried to get answers out of them for, is it rental or home ownership? And the lack of an answer is indicative of the answer. To me, that tells me that smacks of rental properties. And unless they you'd have to put a wall along the east side there to keep like they said, the transit traffic coming out of that complex in through ours and using our walkways and stuff like this. It's a very personal concern. And the other thing too, I'd like to know if there has been a study done on water and sewer impact to this area. I looked at the guidelines at Shelby Township on the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission and the Building Department. I was in construction 33 years myself as a contractor, so I know the process. And what was I going to say? I'm 75 years old and I'm losing it. Beg pardon? Water and sewer. Oh, the water and sewer.
Yeah.
And we have, like to say, that we have enough problems in our complexes already. And then, like Mary Ann Sigler already stated, you know, we spent $100,000 just because of the water issues coming out of that drain, the Ruby Red Drain, where we had to raise the structures because they slid back down in there. The foundations actually dropped, and they had to go down to bedrock to jack up the buildings to put them back in place. People couldn't even open their doors and things of that nature. And I was on the board at that time, and I went over and looked at it, and the sides of the buildings were cracked and dropping towards that drain. So that drain basically right now is insufficient. As far as anything else, like I say, most of my questions have been asked already. And the traffic impact, I don't know if a traffic impact study has been done. And according to the guidelines that the Planning Commission and the zoning board are supposed to follow, an impact study should have been done. And so far, what I'm seeing, that hasn't been done. I went through a lot of things to see if I could catch some snafus, but that's about it. Okay, that's about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. You could sign in.
And it took me a long way to get here. Charlene Hosty, 13740 22 Mile Road, Shelby Township, 48315. My concern is, are they going to be bringing traffic from this new subdivision out onto 22 Mile?
No.
So the only place that they're going to be able to come out is onto Shaner. Okay, because we've lived since '64 there, and as everybody has said.
The only access, there's an emergency gate at the back of the church parking lot that in case of the fire or police need to get an emergency into, they can access it.
So we
but
don't have to
there
worry
won't be any
about
general
traffic.
public access from 22 Mile Road.
That's our biggest concern, because like everybody has said, if the police would sit on 22 Mile, they'd have enough money to probably build a new building. That's.
Thank you, ma'am.
Kenneth Deman, 13654 Lancaster Drive, Shelby Township, 38-year resident. The first thing is Mr. Giovanni should have been here instead of his spokespeople, because I don't trust one thing that they've said. And I would like to show of hands from yous. How many of you people live in the area where this proposed townhouse project is going to be? None of yous. So yous can vote yes on this project, and yous don't even live in the area where this is being done. How convenient. You should be ashamed of yourselves. And last month, I talked with Mr. Giovanni. I told him this is zoned R1. That is in the master plan, as you know that, Julie. Why are we changing it just to
Sir,
accommodate?
lower-
No, I'm
lower this
speaking.
down. You
I'm
can speak,
speaking.
but how you speak to this board, show some respect. We've showed respect to the
I
audience.
did show respect.
No,
What do
you're
you
yell-
mean I'm
you're-
not showing
you're yelling at-
respect?
You're yelling at this board. I take
I'm
offense to that.
speaking in the
Sir?
microphone. I can't help it. I'm trying to make sure yous all understand what I'm saying.
I think you understand the
I will
difference.
try to
I will-
lower my voice then.
Thank
Is
you.
that appropriate then?
That's appropriate.
Okay. As I said, last month I spoke with Mr. Giovanni. I told him it's zoned R1. Fine, build some nice homes. The people will be happy. You won't have any problems with none of the residents. And it will probably help to increase the value of our homes. But no, Mr. Giovanni wants to build townhouses, which are going to cause problems for us. It's going to cause violence, possible shootings, drug activity, alcohol. Shelby Township just had a double shooting last week at a complex. Do you want this in your backyards? Come on, people. We don't need any more condos. We don't need any more townhouses. We don't need any more apartments. We got enough of this garbage already. And you want to stick now townhouses in our backyard? No way. No way. And you people should use your own head. You got to think like you're living there. Would you want this in your backyards? Heck no, you wouldn't. And don't try to con us people here into thinking that, oh, you're doing the best for us. You aren't doing the best for us. You're thinking for the builder. And some of you are so stuck with that builder. It's like he's got control over you. And that we can easily see. I've heard it from many people. Wait.
No, you're crossing the line.
No, I'm
To assume
not.
that somehow that this board of volunteers, is somehow in the pocket of a developer? No. That's,
I
you
did
can make your point without him making accusations.
did
Do you have
not
proof?
say
Do you
that.
have proof of that?
I did not say that. You said in the pocket. I didn't say anything about the pocket. I didn't say one thing. But everybody can see for themselves there's something wrong here. It's almost like an investigation is almost needed to find out just what connections there are. At the first meeting, you were angry, Chairman Muffet, because it didn't get passed. All the people I talked to, they seen it in your face. And like, why? Why are you so angry because it didn't get passed the first time? I mean, come on. We see these things. These people are not stupid, okay? We're not stupid. We can see through so much. And this whole thing has been going on not just this year. It started way last year, and there was a lot of secret things involved in all this that the residents were not even told about, okay? Now, you can shake your head and do all this and all that. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. Let's make that clear, okay?
All right.
You're the one that brought up the thing.
It sounded
So
like
you
an accusation.
you should apologize to me
Sir,
for bringing that up.
I'm also not a fool and not an idiot, and so I understand.
I didn't-
I understand what you were implying.
I did not say you were an idiot.
Right, you
You
wanted-
see?
you wanted to-
You see?
no, no, no,
You see,
no, no.
everybody? He's bringing
Okay,
this
sir,
crap
do you
up
have
and
anything else to
accusing
say?
me.
Are you have anything
You're
else to say?
accusing
Do
me
you have anything
of
else to say?
calling you
Do
things
you have
I
anything
did
else to
not
say?
call you.
Okay, next person.
Shame on yourself.
You can figure out who he is. Anyone else wish to comment?
Deborah Crane, 13641 Silver Birch Village. Concerned about the entrance. It's rather long. My home abuts up to it. There might be 50 feet that will stop 150 cars passing me every day. Maybe a curb. I tried bringing the subject matter up with the builder, and the communication stopped. I just would like a safety study. Thank you.
Can you please sign in?
Anyone else wish to comment? Okay.
My name is Maria Bianchini, 49329 Silver Birch Circle, Shelby Township. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. And again, not to reiterate everything that's already been mentioned, but maybe to get a little bit more into detail about the specific plans that were presented. If I may also say, I believe your number was 291 notices that were sent out at the initiation of this meeting. That means there's at least that many people within 300 feet of this development, which means it's a pretty extreme number of people that will be involved. That's the only reason I'm citing that number. And sir, your presentation, you specifically said these were individual townhomes.
Ma'am, address the board, please.
Beg your pardon?
Address the board.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at you. But you had mentioned these were individual townhomes.
Yes, ma'am, you're
I-
addressing the board, and then we will ask the questions of the individual.
I stand corrected, thank you. The gentleman stated these were individual townhomes. I don't see in the drawings that these are individual townhomes. Perhaps individual buildings, but are the townhomes individual, is my question.
Okay.
Not demonstrated in the plans. Also, thank you very much for mentioning the 15 minimum between the buildings. Very instrumental in this consideration also. I have to say I'm representing our community, Silver Birch Village, and I appreciate the gentleman's comment also about, of course, the builder being interested in profit, but you, of course, understand our interest does not take that into consideration. Our interest is our value, property values, actually, since there are way over 300 of us that are affected by this. Specifically regarding the soil report, though, I want to know if actual geotechnical, because I'm bringing this subject up because of all of the water issues, and because this was just circulated to us recently, actually, this flood plan, which was interesting and effective. But I want to know if a geotechnical soil boring report was actually current that was demonstrated in the existing conditions, or was that historical? Because based on everything I've heard, especially tonight, I want to know, I think everybody wants to know, what the water table actually is. And then also, well, let me skip through my notes here. I have a short period of time. The abutting existing properties during this whole proposed construction, how are we going to be affected by the underground, the maintenance, the new construction, our individual existing homes? How are we going to be affected by all the underground utilities? Have they even been identified yet, where the location of these utilities are? I don't think so. So to propose this type, and where I'm going with all of this, to propose this type of development with all of this pre-examination is backwards. I won't even get into the Shaner Road ingress and egress, because that's been demonstrated here quite considerably about the traffic and not only with the construction being completed, but the construction of the project with all the construction vehicles, the equipment vehicles and such like that. There is no room. There's no place for all of the vehicles, even the personnel, the construction workers' vehicles. Where are they going to park? I mean, while this is going on, through apparently, not consistently, but maybe a couple of years, construction. These are all legitimate, realistic questions. And as Deborah just mentioned, there's a very minimal boundary on the north side of Silver Birch, since I'm representing Silver Birch Village, obviously. just a 10-foot buffer before that entrance, the ingress. And there, our unit owners' backyards abut that. There's no protection whatsoever of that traffic that may be going in and out consistently there. And not only that, as been mentioned before by our neighbors' comments, the access of people just walking into our community, whereas now it's buffered, tremendously buffered. And I have to go back to a construction question also, because I'm a builder, and I know the access to material now, and I know how long I'm waiting for roofing material, for building material. I know what we used to be able to get in 2 weeks, we have to wait 3 months now for. Where's the contingencies, or what's the plan if this construction is started? Okay, then we're working on it, then we have to stop because we're not getting this. If you look economically at this project, you can see you cannot realistically develop a schedule. It's impossible now. It is virtually impossible because of the material acquisition and labor acquisition, if I may add. I think more importantly, or if I had to prioritize more than anything else, would be the fact, and I do agree with everybody that's already made this comment, that we are not getting a divisive answer to, are these going to be single individual family-owned units or rental units? And then, of course, objectively, without prejudice, please, but because the comment was made, market value, I know there is federal and state aid that's going to be available for rental units and such like that. So if it's viable, that these be more financially advantageous to the builder, if they were rental units, then for sure they would go that way. And of course, that would be their opinion. However,
You're making, okay.
I'm not stating that as a fact, please.
All right.
I'm stating it as a consideration for future, that's all. Not a fact. I know I don't have a crystal ball, but it's a possibility. So we would like to know, again, I agree with the gentleman that said if these are single-family, R1B, absolutely, because the property value of everyone neighboring and literally encompassing this area is at risk. If these aren't substantial to the quality conducive to what's already existing, and I've not seen that demonstrated, not at all. No assurances that it will be either, not at all. In conclusion, as representation of actually myself and Silver Birch Village, we very respectfully, you oppose this conditional rezoning request and site plan. And perhaps it can come back with something a little bit more reasonable and conducive to the entire neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Wish to comment?
Denise Blinkley, 13677 Silver Birch Circle, Shelby Township, 48315. I'd just like the board to know that I'm a fairly new owner at Silver Birch. And I can tell you it's been about 8 months now that I wouldn't have purchased because of the noise. Mainly my concern is the traffic. I'm the one trying to make a left onto Shaner Road at Monday through Friday at about 10 minutes to 8. And I can honestly tell you, it's a task. It really is. It's getting to be a danger zone to the point where I'm glad I don't have little ones, because it would be it's considered, it's showing signs of getting considerably worse. So I'm just saying, from a single female standpoint, I wouldn't purchase in that area because of the traffic and because of the noise.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good sign in, please. Does anyone else wish to comment or question? Going twice, 3 times? Bring it back. Oh, sir.
Excuse me. That bad cold. My name is Clark Andrews, and I'm an attorney with O'Reilly Van Silly in Sterling Heights, and I represent Jane Saya, the owner of the R1B residential brick house on Shaner. And she wants to express her support for this project. She is much more satisfied with it at this point than she was at the beginning, because she feels like she has a better understanding of what she is going to get there. At the first meeting, she, like others, even though she's part of it, was concerned, well, what are the units going to look like? How many are there going to be? What are the buffers going to be? And she feels now that those issues have been addressed. And I believe that the engineering and drainage issues will be addressed as part of the normal site plan and engineering review process. And we would recommend that you approve this. It's consistent with the master plan. It fits with the area. I believe that based on the representations that have been made, that these are going to be high-quality units that are in the neighborhood of $350,000 apiece. That's unlikely to bring transients that are going to be a detraction to the neighborhood. So on her behalf, I'd like to express her support for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could sign in, sir, too, please. Okay, ma'am.
Good evening. I'll make it quick. I know we all want to get out of here. I'm Angie Lazarus. I live at 13740 Silver Birch Circle, 48315. I just have a quick question. I know it was addressed, the Decker drain behind, on the east side of what would be the newly formed property along the back of Silver Birch, that would be existing foliage there. If the Decker drain is cleared out to improve flow, like it was referenced in the FAQ document that Olympia Homes sent us, what would be the planning for planting along that route? Right now, there are pines planned for every other perimeter of Silver Birch, except for that one, and along Heritage as well.
Okay.
So open question there, and also open question on when does the construction start if this gets approved? I know that it said 3 years of probably planning until the last unit is sold. That's a long construction period. Please keep that in mind in your consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Can you please sign in?
Good evening. My name is Margaret Escaro. I live at 49426 Kirkland Court in Heritage Place West. The only question I have is, a gentleman here said, we don't want to clean out those drains. Why not? If it's going to be good for the new community and good for us, and what's the drawback? If he doesn't want to clean them out, sounds to me they're too bad to add more people to. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think it's probably the Drain Commission that determines whether they'll get cleaned out or not, so they regulate. But. Anyone else? I think we got most everybody. Okay, to the Planning Director for our comments.
Thank you, Chairman Moffett. So first of all, as Mr. Epping stated, that this came in originally as a straight rezoning, and the residents, along with the Planning Commission, also recommended that they see a site plan with that. So in fact, that's what they have submitted right at this point, is a site plan along with this conditional rezoning, meaning that the site plan is tied to the rezoning and the rezoning is tied to the site plan. So with that being said, I think Mr. Epping did a good job describing this project. I'm going to go over the master plan compatibility. Actually, the master plan calls for this area as mixed residential. So within that mixed residential, our master plan encourages a variety of housing types along corridors, maintain quality of apartment buildings as they age, utilize mixed residential as a transitional use between less intense residential uses and non-residential uses, and promote reinvestment in older neighborhoods. So with that being said, this property is located near office and multiple family, other than the single-family residential to the north, as we stated. This is actually consistent with the master plan, this rezoning request. And I did have a few site plan comments with this, actually an extensive amount of site plan comments. So I'm going to go through some of the most important ones. And one of them is they need to provide a minimum recreation area of 27,200 square feet, which was not indicated on the plan. And this is based on the number of units and the number of bedrooms with those units. Like we discussed earlier, there's a minimum of 25 feet of landscape yard space required adjacent to each multiple family building, and the applicant is proposing 15 feet. We also discussed briefly the emergency access between the church and this development. I would recommend that either signage or some sort of breakaway gate is installed, because we certainly don't want, if this is approved, residents to go through the church property to get off on 22 miles. So we only have the one point of egress. The side-to-side setback requirement between buildings is 28 feet, again, 15 feet proposed. The Planning Commission can modify this interior setback and building separation requirement when necessary to maintain privacy or achieve creative building and site design. I'm not sure that this site plan addresses a creative building or site design. They're pretty normal in as far as the street layout and the building layout. Entrance landscaping is required. Parallel parking is not permitted, so a variance would have to be, is required for the parallel parking around the interior of the site that's proposed. Moderate screening is required abutting residential property to the north. There is sufficient area to provide this moderate screening between the parking and the residential property that's being proposed to the north. Parking lot landscape is required, so we'll need more details on the amount of landscaping as far as that's concerned. Indicate ground cover and means of irrigation. Tree permit's going to be required. Trash disposal was not indicated, so I'm not sure if each unit is going to have their individual trash service or there's going to be some sort of dumpsters. Detention ponds are proposed, and the applicant has addressed that. Typically, residents like to see a fountain if it is a wet detention pond to keep the water circulating and prevent any mosquitoes or bugs. They recommend that a fountain be installed, and it looks like they addressed that comment. The monument sign encroaches into the 25-foot clear vision triangle. There is a separate application required for that anyway, but I think we should think about the entrance landscaping and the signage too. That needs to be clarified on the site plan. As far as assessing is concerned, the parcels must be split and combined. DPW also has some comments, and those comments from the Department of Public Works will also be addressed during the engineering phase of this project. No parking fire lane signage is needed for both sides of the street. That's per the fire department. Street names are required, locations of hydrants. Macomb County Department of Roads has reviewed this plan, and they did not have any comments regarding the location of the ingress and egress on this site, and no objections from the police department. And as far as the engineering comments, there are also a number of engineering comments. So basically, my suggestion at this point would be to postpone, subject to the applicant providing details on all the comments addressed in my review and also the engineering review.
Okay, thank you. The petitioner will come up and we'll go through some of these questions, comments. Several around the drainage issues, the sufficiency of it, the issues that they had in Heritage Place. And let's include the Artesian Wells. I mean, are you aware of these things? How about the soil, what have your soil borings?
First of all, I'm not acutely aware of what's going on in Heritage Place. We are aware of a high groundwater table.
Okay.
These proposed structures, actually, the proposal was for slab on grade, not with basement. So the issues with sump pumps that they're experiencing in their basements, these are not proposed with basement at this time. Certainly, if there is a basement situation, you know, if they were to change the building and provide a basement, there'd be sump pump. Again, a full geotech is standard as you go into the construction phase of something. It would be quite premature to start engineering something before we even had a rezoning to allow it to go in, however. The issue with the drains and the drainage. Now, perhaps I misunderstood. My thought is, if I lived there, I would want the drains to remain as is. If you as a body said, hey, okay, you want those drains cleaned out, then really what we would do is we would say, okay, we'll take advantage of the storage that's available to us in the Shelby Consolidated Drain and talk with the Drain Commission about a full clean out, not just cleaning out the ditch itself, but a full clean out of the banks, everything. The entire easement gets completely cleaned, and you restore it with, you know, particular plantings. But then, of course, our on-site detention ponds could be eliminated. So we probably would, I mean, we'd gain some space to make up perhaps some units that we're going to lose because of the setback issues. But we would eliminate, you know, at that point, we wouldn't need the detention ponds anymore, and we'd simply rely on the county drains as our detention, because it's built in with the Shelby Consolidated. So my approach was preserve it and provide the detention basins. But the alternate approach of, hey, clean it all out and use the detention that was available, that was built in when the Ruby and the Catholic drains were there, is available. I just didn't think it was the preferred alternative in this situation. So, hey, tracking with me? Any questions on that?
Yeah, I'm going to ask the planner, does the township have any position on which they prefer?
That would be up to the township engineer.
All right. So where would they get guidance on that?
We can talk to AEW
Yeah,
on what they would recommend.
Right, and I think they're both, let me say it this way, they're both allowed options. It's not like one option is another option. Again, I was thinking of, let's leave the drain to go natural and not be responsible to clean it out. But if, when I say clean it out, I mean a full drain improvement, clean out the entire easement.
Is it worth kind of differentiating clean out versus improve? The county would improve it, improve the sides there. We'd still clean it out, get rid of, you know.
Why don't you come to the microphone?
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
My point there was certainly as part of the development as it's currently proposed, we would clean it out to the extent that, you know, fallen branches, make sure that it's flowing better than it currently is, as opposed to a full county improvement, which would likely increase the cross-section, remove some additional plants that we'd prefer to keep and so forth. Is that accurate?
Yes. Said better than I would have said it.
Okay. There were dead trees on the drain to the east.
I think that the property line to the east has the fewest number of existing trees, kind of sporadic pines if you visit the site or look on an aerial. Our plan is to improve that landscape over there, and we've demonstrated that. If those trees are not viable currently, probably because if that adjacent area is pretty wet, you know, we can look at removing those and improving the landscape, you know, just the same. But our plan is to maintain that 50-foot setback on our eastern boundary, take advantage of the trees that are there if they're healthy, and install new trees in addition to them.
Okay. Let's talk access on Shaner. Woman was somewhat impassioned on her safety concern on whether if a curbing or something can be put on the entrance. And she's reached out to you before. I mean, are you familiar with why don't you give us an update on that?
I think we may be two very adjacent areas. Is the curb cut on Shaner is established by the Road Commission. They've actually have the existing stub street, if you will, stub entrance street currently exists on Shaner. So the one gentleman who lives across the street should be able to identify right now, where the county has already determined that curb cut will be. It already has A-cell and D-cell lanes that are there. I believe, if I understood the one woman's comments, who lives in Silver Birch, along that northern boundary of their development, our entrance road going out to Shaner does parallel their development. We do have a landscape buffer, but we are somewhat constrained by two things of where that can go. A, where it comes out onto Shaner Road, that curb cut is already existing, and B, there is an existing drain that goes east-west from Shaner into the site. So our proposed entrance road does run parallel with the back of their property. There is a landscape buffer on our side of their property, as well as some substantial trees on their side, and we're improving that landscape along that entrance road. So from a safety point of view, the county essentially predetermined where that entrance is going to be. We'll do everything we can to make sure that traffic goes slowly, within the development.
Julie, will the township engineer look at, would the township engineer look at that consideration?
With the location of the driveway?
Not the location, but in terms of having, curbing it or whatever, because it is relatively close, because it is going to get cut in relatively close. I think it's a legitimate concern that.
Our roads, our internal roads will be curb and gutter, so they certainly will be curbed. There won't be, that access, to go off the road, so to speak. I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Several comments on traffic. Julie, an impact study, would that be required?
I believe an impact study was submitted along with the first rezoning request, so we would just incorporate it if you have to revise it.
Yeah.
I would also recommend submitting that with the proposal.
Okay.
Okay. Pedestrian traffic through the site and accessing, so they would sort of have, so where would they would access?
Well, we believe good neighborhoods have sidewalks, so we're proposing sidewalks on our roads. They are private roads and it's a private development, so from an enforcement point of view, if we started having a lot of people, just like Heritage East or West or Silver Birch, certainly always have enforcement opportunities, either through the homeowners or through the police. But it is, we aren't proposing a gated neighborhood or anything. There will be sidewalks, and I suppose if Jane next door in her home wants to walk through our development and go to the church, as long as they're not causing troubles, I don't think we're particularly against it. We don't anticipate that being a problem.
Okay, well, I think the concern was the people within your, but I don't know how you would stop that. I mean, I guess because it's sort of framed by drains, it's not like they're gonna be walking through anyone's backyards. And so really the access would put either out the street that you're proposing or down through the church parking lot and out to 22 Mile.
Yeah. With the final plans, Julie mentioned 27,000 square feet of recreation area. We certainly exceed that, and we can document that in terms of open space. But and we are proposing trails around the detention basins and so forth. So we're looking to expand our trail system and our sidewalk system, but they are not leading into adjacent neighborhoods.
All right. How about water and sewer impact? Did you consider?
No, site plan, for a PUD, of course, a statement of water and sewer impact is required, but for a rezoning and a site plan at this stage, it's not usually part of the submittal package. So again, we can certainly look into it, but again, we've not heard any issues with a lack of either water capacity for fire suppression or fire protection or sanitary sewer capacity. And of course, the drainage, the storm sewer is right there in the county drains.
Okay, thank you. So there was some little confusion on the definition of the townhomes. So are we talking five unit building, buildings with 5 individual units, and like in buildings with 7 individual units was what I saw?
That's exactly right. From a building point of view, it's considered a tower where I would own one unit, and it would have a first floor and a second floor with a garage on the first floor.
Front to back.
Front to back. and they would be attached by, you know, by definition, so there'd be anywhere from 4 to 7 townhomes attached to each other, but they are not stacked flats. There's not one family living on the first floor and one family living on the second floor. It'd be kitchen, family room, garage on the first floor, bedrooms on the second floor.
Okay.
Kind of
Patio out the back,
Exactly,
porch on the front.
correct.
So a couple of concerns over property values. Do you want to address that?
You know, it's a question asked with every development, right? How does the unknown affect my property value? And it's a very, very fair question. We believe, you know, the quality of construction, the quality that's been submitted is going to be modern construction. There are going to be built to be for sale units. As I said, they're going to be standalone but attached townhome units, individual addresses, everything inside up to date and modern appliances, granite, all those different things that you would expect with a $300,000 to $350,000 home. My experience has been in the various communities that I've worked, you know, dozens of communities throughout Southeast Michigan, new development like this, done well, which is this is being proposed, generally raises the value, raises, you know, the water in the boats around them. There's no reason to think that there's no evidence, I should say, that I'm aware of that would say that a development of this caliber would have any detrimental effect on residential values around it. It certainly increases the taxable values. What we tend to see is it generally raises all the values around it, but you know, real estate agents or your assessor may have additional opinions, but that's been my experience.
Okay. I mean, you've addressed the rental, you know, the ownership issue. I think you've answered it or addressed it as probably as much as you're going to. I think that's, I mean, there was planting on Decker Drain, so we did raise those questions. But you're proposing plantings on.
I'm sorry?
They're, sort of the plantings on the drains, additional plantings.
Well, you know, when we did the landscape plan, and again, it's a preliminary landscape plan, there'll be more coming with final, absolutely correct that the ordinance calls for a moderate buffer between multifamily and R1B. We can establish that with the 135 foot of existing vegetation. My anticipation was that would be satisfy the existing ordinance. We do propose plans between the detention basin and the edge of that woods, but we can certainly look to meet the ordinance on that north side as it abuts R1B. The ordinance doesn't specifically call for any landscaping necessarily between adjacent zoning, but again, we are proposing it to be there, both a setback and additional landscape buffer between east and west.
Okay. So construction, so let's, so when you put shovel in the ground, how long do you think it's going to take for the?
Well, again, please, Giovanni's here. We know that from a planning point of view, from an engineering point of view, that's going to take most of next year by the time we get to the point of permits, both with the township and the county. At that point, you're looking at spring of '23 for underground construction, and the fall of '23, if I've got that right, to start vertical construction. So you're really looking at not this summer, but the following, not this coming summer, but the following for the start of construction. At the end of the day, assuming the economy stays strong, to build these 13 buildings will go, you know, essentially that whole building season. But as long as the economy is strong, we'd anticipate this being built within that year period and build them, you know, starting in the back and working our way out and selling them as we go.
Okay. Any comments to the planners' issues? Parallel parking, screening north of the drain.
I guess my one, generally they all make an awful lot of sense. Typically they would be things that we would anticipate seeing at final, things like signage and street names. I think the 4 projects that came before us tonight had very similar type comments and you know, were conditions of approval, because a lot of those are, you know, typical type things that would come at final, but we don't object to any of those. Mr. Turner and the planner brought up the side setback. You heard our feeling on that. I do feel strongly that the 15-foot is an appropriate setback from an aesthetic point of view, from that townhouse kind of urban feel. I think that feels right, and we do feel, that we would like to see that part of the included site plan. So we're in disagreement there. We do agree with the breakaway gates. The minimum recreation area is we've already achieved, and we'll certainly demonstrate that. So trash would be handled inside people's garages. It would be a unified homeowners association where trash would be handled by a private company on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. So there would not be dumpsters or anything like that. Monument signs, landscape, certainly we can accommodate that. So our hope tonight would be, despite and respecting the suggestion to postpone, this is our third meeting. I think we've been very consistent, very transparent, and really, frankly, very honest with our intent of how we would like to develop this property, the quality that it's going to be. It's at a point where we certainly would like some direction. If not a recommendation to approve and to recommend approval based on the state that it is now in terms of preliminary and all the work that has to be done with final and engineering and so forth. It's difficult to keep going forward and adding this level of detail, which just takes more time, more investment, and more meetings with the county and people like that. Frankly, we are with the county and others at kind of that chicken and egg place where we're just not being prioritized because we don't even have preliminary or zoning approval. So with respect, we would request a recommendation for approval tonight based on what we've talked about, and knowing that we still have many meetings and many submittals to go.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Grott, you'd reserved your some questions?
I have,
Do you
Mr. Chairman.
Do you still wish to comment?
Well, I'm going to make a brief comment because I think that if there's a motion to postpone, of course, I'm going to be supporting that motion because I think there's quite a bit of cleanup involved here per our planner. But first of all, Mr. McKenna, thank you for your service. Mr. McKenna is a Vietnam veteran over there. He spoke here briefly, and we appreciate you very much, what you have done, serving in Vietnam and coming back alive. So thank you for your service. The property in question, for the residents there, the property in questions will be developed somehow, sooner or later. The only question is, can the property be developed as is? And my answer is yes. It can be developed as residential development. There's a shortage of single-home residential properties in Shelby Township. So I don't think developer will have a hard time selling those single-family homes. There's a lot of comments made that mixed residential area. If you ask me, there's plenty of mixed residential in that area. You got townhomes on one side, you got townhome on the other side. I believe those are privately owned. Those like condominium type of unit where you own a unit. I haven't heard anything from the developer that these will be privately owned. However, there's no also for sale guarantee if I connected properly with his comments. So basically the proposal is apartments. And is it consistent with the master plan? I'm not sure, but I know I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to vote no. So thank you very much.
Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Can I just add a comment, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
In our meeting that we had in May, when you came before us, I stand with the no as far as developing this to a multifamily R8, the density reason, the traffic, And I do believe there is a shortage of homes in Shelby Township. I'm not sure why we keep, with the spot zoning, going to multifamily. I think that we're ignoring what really is needed here in our community and the residents. I'm concerned about the abutting property values, and I think that this all needs to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to comment? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Support. It's been moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Let me find my cheat sheet. There we go. So our basis for the motion this evening needs to be the practicality of the rezoning request and the effect on the surrounding area, the owner's right to use his land. Do current growth and development patterns warrant this rezoning? Is the proposed rezoning in accordance with the master plan? We can recommend approval, we could disapprove this request, or we could table it or postpone it to evaluate this information further. When I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Pone.
move to recommend postponing rezoning petition 02-20 Giovanni Aluya, Olympia Homes and Michael Danello Vanguard Companies for part of parcel number 23-07-24-300-003 and part of parcel number 23-07-24-300-039 to be rezoned from R1B one-family residential to R8 multi-family low-rise based on the applicant submitting a revised plan addressing all department comments.
Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none.
Mr. Chairman, point of clarification, postpone to next meeting?
Postpone.
Just postpone.
Postpone.
Okay, thank you. You did clarify.
Okay. Mr. Pone?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Larray?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Meredith?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Grott?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Chair votes yes.
Thank you, appreciate everyone's time.
Planning Director's report?
I don't have anything, Chairman.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman, prior to that, I have an announcement to make,
Okay,
very beneficial announcement.
sure.
And I just want to be totally transparent. Not related to you folks, so it's okay. I'm not changing my mind. To be totally transparent, Mr. Chairman, I will be proposing to the Board of Trustees increase in compensation for the board members of Planning Commission and also Zoning Commission, Board of Zoning members, by $25 each member per meeting. So in addition, what the compensation is now, my motion to the Board of Trustees will be $25 per member. I just want to put it out there, so, and by the way, I'm not,
We all know who to blame.
yes, you can blame me, but also, just so you know, I'm not compensated for these meetings, so I can actually make a proposal such as this.
It's going to put Mr. Turner into a different tax bracket, but, you know.
Well, I'm sure it will, that maybe that's why I'm doing it, but that's okay.
Thank you.
No, I think this board is very hardworking. I just joined this board recently, and I commend you folks for volunteering, basically, because the compensation you're getting is just, it's minimal to what you go through. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move to
Now I
adjourn.
make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Snyder beat you to it, and I'll take your support of that motion, Mr. Grott.
I did, I will.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.
Here in Shelby Township, the amenities are incredible.
People are starting to realize how fortunate we are with over 1,100 acres of parkland here in Shelby Township.
We are so lucky, we don't think about that on a daily basis.
We've got it all. We've got streams, we've got ponds, we've got rivers. Many people using our trails for bike